is the Maritimes. Oh, we're recording now. Who's our Maritimes horticultural sales rep. He is in California, that lucky bugger. So here we are. You have to deal with me today, I guess. I'm here to talk about two products in our portfolio for low bush blueberries or wild blueberries, those being Maravon and Seraphyll. They've both been in the market for a couple of years now, but just wanted to do a review here. So we'll kick it off with Maravon. There we go. So Maravon fungicide, it was launched last year. It covers a wide range of crops and diseases. There's two active ingredients in Maravon, so Xemium, which has a broad activity on a number of diseases, and then also Pyraclostrobin, which has a number of different branded names, F500. It's also branded with the excellence benefits, so the same active that is in Pristine. And with Maravon, we've seen more consistent disease control to help maximize quality and yield in your crops. Alrighty, so a little bit more about the dual modes of action in Maravon. So first up, we have Pristine, which I think most people are familiar with. So it's a Strobe, a group 11. Has a quick rain fast. It works by inhibiting the QOI enzyme and blocks complex 3. And with that active, we've seen it help improve plant growth efficiencies and stress tolerances through these excellence or plant health benefits that we've observed. And then the second active is Xemium. So it's a group 7. It also has a quick rain fast, and it works through consistent and continuous control. You can see there as it disperses across the plant and helps protect the plant even under adverse conditions. I mentioned this earlier, but Maravon is labeled on quite a few crops and diseases. So if we focus specifically on blueberries here, we are registered for leaf spot, suppression of botrytis gray mold, anthracnose, and phomopsis. And then I did mention this earlier, but Maravon will still provide the same excellence benefits or plant health benefits that you've seen with Pristine in the past. The high rate of Maravon and the high rate of Pristine are fairly similar in terms of Pyraclostrobin rate. So with Pyraclostrobin in blueberries specifically, it helps with increased yield. And we also see berry size and berry retention with that active on blueberries, and then a decrease in soft fruit after harvest as well. And so just looking at some trial results. So this is on high bush blueberries in BC, looking at Maravon versus Circadus, which is another product in our portfolio, and then a competitor. But you see here, so this trial was run in 2015, and there wasn't a lot of disease pressure. But you see, even with limited disease pressure, there's an increase in yield with berries that were applied with Maravon. And then looking at disease control, so this is in wild blueberries done by Dave Percival in Nova Scotia. But again, you see here Maravon outperforming Bravo and Pristine in terms of leaf spot control in low bush blueberries. And then some product specs here for blueberries. So I mentioned the diseases controlled. So we have septoria leaf spot, botrytis suppression, anthracnose, and phomopsis on the label. We have a rate range depending on disease pressure. They're listed there. And then for PHI in wild blueberries, canned harvesting is 1 day, mechanical harvesting is 12 hours. And then re-entry interval is 12 hours for low bush blueberries. And then in general, we recommend starting applications prior to disease development and then continue on a 7 to 14-day interval, 3 max applications, and then no more than 2 sequential for Maravon. All right, so moving on to the second product that I want to talk to you all about today, Serafil. So Serafil is our biological product. There's lots of benefits to biological solutions, as I'm sure you're all aware. We've seen in the market to meet customer expectations and regulatory standards, people are looking for products that or for more organic and sustainable solutions, and so biologicals can play an important role there. They also are very flexible for growers working with specific re-entry and pre-harvest intervals. And then, of course, from a resistance management standpoint, it's another tool in the toolbox. And then just a statement here that biological crop protection is important technology that can complement chemistry-based solutions, so either in a tank mix or in rotation with conventional chemistries. I guess this one was a build, but you also see an enhanced performance. And so when you have those tank mixes with Serafil, and we've seen this with Serafil and Maravon, it can provide increased protection against diseases. So Serafil was registered in grapes in 2019, and then a couple of years ago, we had a pretty wide label expansion into a number of crops. Wild blueberries was in that expansion. We also saw an increase in the storage duration. So instead of having a 16-month shelf life, it has a 36-month shelf life now. So our biological works in a few different ways. It's a BMO2, and there are a few different ways that it works in terms of mode of action. So the first is a physical barrier. So Serafil is a product with live spores, and those spores, when applied on a plant, basically reproduce and occupy space on the plant. So disease-causing pathogens have no room to grow on those leaves and plant tissues. It also works in terms of nutrient competition. So as those spores grow, there's not enough nutrients to support the disease pathogens that are also present there. And then lastly, through fungicidal metabolites. So once on a plant, spores germinate and produce metabolites that have fungicidal and bacterial activity as well. And I did mention this before, but Serafil works really well in combination with other chemical crop protection products. So it can be tank mix or rotated with a bunch of different chemistries, and I have a list on the next slide that lists some of the tank mixes that it's compatible with, but it provides efficacy or equal efficacy to full chemical programs for disease management, and it can prolong the longevity of conventional chemistries by helping delay the onset of resistance to different pathogens. And then listed here are just some tank mix products that we've confirmed compatibility with. There really aren't too many, where I have another slide in the next one that says ones that we shouldn't mix Serafil with, but in general, it's a fairly tank mix friendly. We do always recommend to test a small amount in a jar for compatibility, and also to make sure that your crop is safe from a crop safety standpoint. And so not compatible with Serafil are some of the group M's on the market. And this is because they will kill Serafil spores. And so we recommend not to tank mix, and also to make sure that there are 7 to 10 days between application of Serafil and then these group M actives. Ease of use. So with Serafil, with this formulation versus competitors, we've seen less clumping, less foaming. It has a fairly high bulk density, so there's lower use rates and less product to handle, which makes it a little bit easier. Yeah. we do recommend mixing it in a slurry before you would put it into the tank. And that just means putting some water in a bucket and your Sterifill product and mixing it. And then my last slide here, so management considerations. So we do have a rate range for Sterifill. With low bush blueberries, we recommend the high rate. The case size is 4 by 2 kg jugs. Just make sure with any fungicide, you want to make sure that you have coverage and that your water pH is between 4 and 9. Rain fast is 3 hours. We have a re-entry interval of 4 hours. And because it's a biological product, the pre-harvest interval is 0 days. And with MRLs, we're exempt from those. And that's what I had. I don't know if there are any comments here or questions, or I'm not sure if Dave Percival's on the line, but he did mention he had a comment if he is.
He's not tonight, he's tomorrow night.
Sure.
You had to juggle the schedule around a bit, and Blair felt it was best not to juggle you too, or we might not have your presence.
So we did have one question in the chat. They were wondering if Sterifill is certified organic.
Yep, we do have certification.
Perfect. And then would you always, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say, I think we have the certification on the website, and I can double check that and let you know. But if not, I can get you the papers.
Actually, Dave Percival just posted that on the chat box.
Okay, great.
Perfect. And one other question, would you always recommend like using it in combination with another like conventional fungicide, or is there a space for it to be used like solo?
I think you can use it solo. I think it's best when tank mixed with conventional chemistry. If you were going to use it solo, I would probably make sure that you're also applying you're applying it in rotation with conventional chemistry, just to make sure that you get the disease control that you're after.
Yeah. Great.
Dave Percival's also commented that he'll talk a little bit more on this tomorrow night, because it has some interesting plant defense mechanisms, he says. Not to put you on the spot, Nadine, but you'd mentioned about Sterifill having a 36-month shelf life. I assume that's at a certain temperature, is it?
I'll have to get back to you on that. I'm not 100% sure temperature-wise what our storage considerations are, but I'll make note of that.
I guess my reason for bringing it up is some farmers don't have heated storage, and I have my suspicions that this product would probably be ruined at below freezing.
Yeah.
So just want to make sure that people know, or get to hear at some point, that if it has to be protected from freezing in order to get that 36-month shelf life, then you need to get that out to people.
Yeah, I can definitely get back to you on that one. I'm assuming you're correct because there are live spores in the product. You probably don't want to freeze,
yeah.
but I'll double check.
And I didn't know if that meant it had to be 5 degrees or 10 degrees or whatever. So that's why I just thought I'd ask you to see if you could answer that question or get the information for us.
Yeah, no, I can get that for you.
Perfect. All right. So does anyone else have any questions? If there are, feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand and you can put your mic off mute and ask your question if you have any.
Looks like the group's going to let you off easy, Nadine.
They know I'm nervous.
You did a fine job. Nothing there to be.
Awesome. Well, I'll follow up about the storage considerations, and thanks again for the time.
Perfect.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, guys.
All right, and then we'll hear from Hugh Lyu from Perennia next. If you want to share your screen.
Are you seeing my full screen or my big screen?
Yep, I'm seeing
Perfect there now. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I have to play around this before this meeting starts. having told me many times. Yeah, so well, I hope you guys are easy on me tonight too. So as this virtual section is going on, we hear many updates from different companies, different products, and I think those are great news. But the other important thing we need to know is when is the best time to apply those products into the field and to get a best efficacy control of the species or weeds you are working on. So in this presentation, I will give you some updates on some of the GGD work we are doing and the weather station program, which is ended last year, and just want to give you a summary of all the stations in our programs. And I also want to give you some of management recommendations based on the GGD and the calendar days. I have a new resources I just published, and I just pop some links in the chat. So there are 4 links in the chat that I'll be used tonight. So if you can just click on it, and then you can find the information from those links. So I will start with let me see. Okay, my first slide. So when we talk about the timing of pesticide application, we are not just talking about in a given day when can you go out to spray, because that in that scenario, you need to consider the wind speed, humidity, temperature, etc. We're not talking about that, although this is still important for you to consider before you mix your tank, before you go to the field. You need to know if the weather is desirable for you to apply those products. I know Scott just mentioned that he thinks Chikawa and Ignite is the best to apply after 10 a.m. before 2 p.m.-ish. I don't know how he get that, but I think that's kind of magical to have those kind of conclusion for certain products. So I would still encourage you to check the weather station's most current weather information before you go to the field and make your application. But today our focus will be on the crop stages. When can you put those products on a certain stages? So these 2 graphs I just showed here, I know it's a lot of information in this slide, but you can find the guide I published through the link. So on the top there, we have a sprout year management from April to December, and I show a couple of important stages here. We have plant emergency and tip dyke bag development, and the fall management. Under that, you have crop year from April and November again. And in the crop year, we have more stages we need to look at. So including our bug stages for monolinea control, for bloom stage, for botrytis and bee hive placement. And we also have the green flu and flu coloring for your SWD and blueberry maggot and harvesting going on in there. So this will be a very busy year and busy time for everybody here. So I want to talk about this again, because I know still this is quite a new concept. People are still confused what's going on. We started talking about GGD now. So to put that in a very easy, understandable concept is, so same as human beings, the plants needs certain temperature or sunlight or energy to get to a desirable stage. For example, if they want to get to a certain, say, plant emergency, they require a certain amount of heat from the environment. And how do we quantify how much heat or how many temperature we get from a certain day is using the growing degree day. So growing degree day is a measure of heat accumulation based on the daily temperature. And I will give you an example here. I think I showed this last year. I don't want to stress you guys, because going forward, I don't think you need to work on the calculation and worry about that, because I will introduce a couple of ways you can get this number, and we are working on something for growers to check the GGD from a certain stage and more easily. So, so for example, if you want to calculate 2022 April, if you are on April 7th and you want to know how many growing degree days you have accumulated since April 1st, then you need to know each day's GGD. So on April 1st, if you have a high temperature of 6 and you get a low temperature of 3, I think I can show my markers here, 10. So if you have a high of 6 and low of 3 and you get an average number and you minus the base temperature. So base temperature is different from different species, from different species you are working on. So for plants, we normally use 0 for wild blueberries, but if you are working with insect, as Cameron mentioned last night, you're looking at 5 degrees there. So this one, we don't need to really, worry about it. We will do some presetting to make sure you get the right base temperature. And then you will get a 4.5 GDD on April 1st, and same for the other days, and you sum everything up from April 1st until April 6th, and you get a 23.5 GDD. Well, when you get this number, there's really nothing happening during the first 2 weeks of April for you to work on. But that gives you an idea how early or how warm our April is. Because over the last 2 years, when I look at every single stations and all our plant development, after the mid-April, so from April 15th until the end of April, this 2 weeks seems to be two of the weeks we need to pay close attention to, because these 2 weeks we tend to get higher temperature in these 2 weeks, and then after the end of April, temperatures start to cool down. So just let you know, this is kind of what I found over the last two seasons. And so this slide here just tells you how you calculate, but you don't need to worry about this. I just want to make you understand how do we get those accumulation GGDs by doing this calculation. So if you combine the first 2 points I just mentioned, plants needs temperature and sunlight to get to a certain stage, and the growing degree there is a measure of the heat accumulation. If you put these two concepts together, you get we can know the plant GDD model, which tells you under what GDDs some interesting crop stages will occur. So such as you have your F2, you have your bloom, etc. So GDD is an index calculated from temperature data and is used to estimate the time needed for a crop or other organism to reach a certain stage of development. So, and research shows that temperature has a significant impact on the development of crops and many other organisms, such as insects. The higher temperature within a certain limit, because once you get about, say, 30 or 35, they don't really continue to grow, and generally encourage more germination. So higher temperature will encourage more germination and growth, while a cooler period can cause development to slow down or even become dormant. And here, just a very quick example to show you what I mean by GDD model. So luckily, we have this for wild blueberries. This is a model that we currently have, and it shows you 3 important blueberry stages, including plant emergency, tip dieback, and percentage of bloom. So these 3 stages are very important, but we need more information on other stages. The reason why I highlight this those information here in red is because those number needs to be changed based on our new research data. Those needs to be changed. So don't really write those down yet. I will share that numbers in a second again. And I just want to say, I know a lot of people are still using, your calendar methods. You have your records from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and you still kind of using those numbers to determine when you should do a certain management activities, which I still encourage you to do that. But with our climate and everything is changing, and we have this great tool, I want you guys to know that according to the research, GDD methods to predict crop development is more reliable than calendar methods. And I'm just going to show here why I think so and why research suggests it is more reliable. So as the temperature can vary significantly with locations, growing season, and time of a day and time of year, so predicting crop and insect development through GDD is more reliable because you would track the current season's temperature. So you will start to track your temperature on that season from April 1st until whenever you need to know the day. And by developing our GDD model, we have a great understanding of the species we want to know, how they respond to temperature and how much heat or GDD they really need to reach that certain stage. So that information will stay relatively the same for a long period of time, maybe I said a decade or more. But with we still work continue to validate those numbers. So this makes the GGD tool a great support tool for you to know when to do your management along with your calendar days. So I would say both methods should be used together to give you a better idea and give you a better suggestion on when to do certain management activities. All right, so here so this model I show here was developed in 2012, and over the last decade we didn't really use it, or only use it in with the researchers and extension specialists in different regions. We didn't really have that capacity to roll up this because we don't really have many stations in the province for us to record field's temperature to get a GDD for that field, and also that limited our ability to continue our research. But luckily, over the last 2-3 years, this weather station program rolled up, and we have in total of 100 stations now installed in our province. With that 100 stations, we have about I think 55. I shouldn't say about, exactly 55 stations installed in wild blueberry fields. So that really gives us a great opportunity for us to use the GGD tool to improve our management. The next slide I want to show you here on the top left here, that's the map. All the stations belong to independent growers, Nova Scotia, NSDA, and Perennia. Below that map, you can see this is a map from Cape Breton Maisonette, and that includes all the stations from this weather station program, and also weather stations from independent growers and other agents here as well. So if you found one of the stations in wild blueberries far away from yourself, but there's a weather station maybe belongs to this Cape Breton Maisonette or belongs to Marble, Canada, then you can use that, and I can show you a way how can you do your own calculation. But going forward, I hope we don't need to do that. So I just also published an Excel sheet that is automated, a calculator that can give you the calculation automatically. So say if you put in 5 and 2 for April 1st this year, and it will calculate that April 1st GGD for you, and then you will continually, if you do more entering, that will give you the accumulation GGD. So it shows up on the top of here, and then you compare this number or whatever number you get here, compare with that with our GGD model or the GGD information I'm about to talk in a second there. So that's a very easy tool, and that link is already posted on our website, and then also on the chat. You can certainly feel free to download it and then use it for your own reference if you want to keep track of your own GGD. But we are working on something to make this process easier. I will mention that in a second. So last year, when we have about 20 stations ready before April 1st, we were able to kind of calculate every single station's GGD, and I report that through my blog, so through the Wild Blueberry blog, and you can check on the day when I report what GGD you have, say for pasture growth station or for the bird station, and you can get a sense of where roughly your crop stage is at. That is very time consuming. Last year we have 20 stations, but this year we are getting to 55. So that's going to take a long time for somebody, myself or my colleagues to update that. So I don't think we're going to stick with to update every single stations this year, but we're still going to pick a couple of stations, say reasonable distribution of the station in the province where I found maybe there's microclimates, or maybe there's a particular fields I want to know, then I will pick those stations to monitor and to report. But don't be very upset about that, because we are working on something like this. We are working on an online platform that you can pick, say on the top corner here, you can pick your station. If you are in Greenfield, pick a Greenfield station. You insert the start date. A start date is always going to be April 1st for wild blueberry for us in our region, and the end day will be the day, you can say today or whenever, the day when you click on it. And the base temperature here tells you can select on base temperature. That gives you, say, if I want to know April 29th, was my accumulation GDD from Greenfield station. That tells you right here. You don't need to do any calculation. You can go in there to find itself. You even can download, something like here, Excel sheet to keep track of your own GDD here. But I don't think it's going to be look like this, but something similar to this. And we are expecting this to be rolled up before April 1st. But I can give you any promise on that. So don't call me. Yeah, so the next slide I have is, so since we have this great weather station network and a lot of research effort are putting into wild blueberry GDD research, I will give you a quick update on what are the new numbers we have going into 2023 season. So the first one is plant emergency GDDs. As I mentioned, that this number, we have more data. So Scott White continue working on the plant emergency GDD every year. So we have data from 2012 until 2021. So we got more information to develop this GDD number. So before this season, we are looking at 270 GDD for plant emergencies to start, but after last year's number, the new number we get is 213 GDD going into this season. Although this number looks a little bit off from 270, but because last year we have pretty early season, as I mentioned, the last 2 weeks of April last year they are pretty warm, and every day we continue to get those 2-digit temperatures. So that's why it seems like this the number we get is going to push us to earlier management activities, but we'll continue to update this. The next information I have is 40% F2 GDD. So this is very important for monolinear fungicide application. So as everyone knows, you need to have 40% F2, and then when there's a given wetness period forecast, you need to take actions and apply fungicide as needed. But the question is, how do I know when my 40% F2 is going to occur in this field? Before we encourage growers to go to the field, collect 20 stems and count your F2 back numbers and do your calculation and get an average number of your percentage of F2. Well, this method is still encouraged, but we will provide you another support tool for you to know what the percentage of GDD is in your field. So last year we were able to pick 5 sites in Nova Scotia, and then we kind of do some countings on the F2 back stages, and those are the average number we got last year. So 40% F2, you're looking at about 173 GDD. So once you see this number show up in the stations close to you, you should start to take actions and start to watch for your monolinear symptoms, etc. here. But I would say this number should be used carefully because we only have 1 season data, and we are continue working on more data collection to improve the accuracy of those numbers. So with that, the 2 updates I have here. So the 2023 management crop development schedule and management guide will catch all those updates here. So everything highlighted in yellow, that's the newest number you guys should watch going into a season. So 217 GDD for plant emergency, etc. So you will get this copy by click on the link. So you don't really need to write those down. And the next, I just want to since we are talking about the timing of application, those products, I just want to talk specifically about applying products under those GDD. And there are a lot of information below each bar. I don't expect we are going to go through everything tonight. I'm just going to focus on a couple of things I think is important for this topic. So in the early spring, as you see there, roughly from April to mid-May, you need to do your pruning if the pruning wasn't done in the fall, and you can do your fertilizer application. You have a soil pH management, and the most importantly, you have your pre-emergency herbicides. You need to apply those herbicides before the blueberry plant emerges starts. So as I said, the new number we have is 217 certain GDD here. So if you are planning to apply any pre-emergency herbicides such as Valpar, Ignite, Chikara, or Spartan, you need to do it before 213. And I even think that going forward we'll be watch for 200 GDD, because really from 200 to 213, that it's probably only a day or two difference. If we are in a warm season, you can achieve 13 GDD in one day. And last year we are aiming for 270, and then when we reach 200, we post a blog and reminder for anybody who want to apply pre-emergency herbicides to get this done in a week, because last year during that time of year we continually getting about 7 to 10 GDD each day. So that really gives you only a week. So going forward, I would even think this number will be pushed even earlier. But for now, let's just watch for, once you see 200 GDD show up in your weather station or nearby, just start thinking or start to make plans to apply those products. But if you are looking at, say, past 250, 70, and you haven't get your application done yet, and you really want to do it, I would say you should check your field and see how much plants are emerged during the time you want to apply, and certainly don't apply anything when you see there's a lot of blueberries emerge there, because damage will occur if you apply after plant emergency. And the next one is around late spring. You have from maybe around roughly late May to June, and you have insects and weed control. So in the weed control during this time, so I would say maybe more around plant emergency 50% here. You will do your weed control, so you can apply some selective post-emergency herbicide, such as Crystal and Merster. So last night also Scott mentioned, when is the best time to control golden rot is around 20 centimeters GDD, and he mentions 400, but I need to confirm that information with him. So, like when you get 400 GDD and you want to apply your Crystal around 50% of plant emergency, those information can really help you to make the decision and to get the best result out from Crystal, or if you want to manage your golden rot. Yeah. And the next one, this one sounds not so exciting because we don't really need much from the tip dieback stage. The only thing I can recommend is the leaf tissue and soil sampling. So, when they reach to 70-90% of tip dieback, if you want to do your leaf tissue for the nutrient analyze, or you want to do your soil sampling, that's the timing you can, work on it. And once your sprout field reach the full growth, so around 90% or more, or 100% tip dieback, that's the timing your blueberry plant will stop growing, or they are at the top of their growing point. Then you want to start looking at to give those mature plants protection. So by applying leaf disease control products, etc. So that give you that kind of information to make decisions on these two activities here. And the copy you're going to see is like that. And then it full of different management activities recommendations. So I encourage you to take a look and to maybe download a copy, or print a copy with you, so you can kind of have a look every time when you're confused with what you should do during a certain given month or season. And the next one I want to mention is a crop year. So in a crop year, we normally will start with, monitoring our bug swell, and then also the percentage of F2. So monitor for F2 stages and apply fungicides after field reaches 40% F2 and before a wet period is forecast. I also said here, some growers decide, fungicide is too expensive, crop price is too low, they don't want to, do management. That's okay. But, if you have a field with good yield potential and a history of blight, then I think it's a good idea for you to, consider to have your monolinear blight control products on. So, watch for 173 GDD here to make a decision on when you should go to the field to apply your fungicides for monolinear. And the next one is a bloom, percentage of bloom. This is important for your botrytis bright, and also determine when you can put your beehives in the field. We always recommend around 10 to 25% bloom you can put your beehives in the field, which depends on your own personal preference. Some people like it to be a little bit early. Some people say 20, 25, even 50 is okay. But I just put it there with an average number 25% bloom, and this number needs more work to improve the accuracy, and I will mention that in a second. But for now, for this season, still watch for 440 GGD because that's the best we have. So I know I'm going a little bit fast because I don't really need to mention anything after July because we have nothing developed for this period yet, but I will mention that the research activities we have for this season. Okay, and I talk about the many benefits about GGD, and I know you guys are always wondering where can you find this information. So regarding our 2023 GGD reporting plan, as I mentioned, we have too many stations, now 55. I'm going to pick about 20 stations for me to kind of monitor and report to the industry and give you an overall view of the crop development in Nova Scotia, especially in Colchester and Cumberland. However, as I mentioned, we are working on that online platform that you can use it by yourself and then to keep all your records, but that's in the pending. Hopefully that can be rolled up before April 1st. If not, all our weather stations are able to catch all the historical data from the past, or even we start in May, then that can be still captured in the system. So don't worry about that if we are passing April 1st. Okay, and before I go into have some updates on the 2023 season research activities, I just want to give you a summary of what we found last year. So below there, 2022, as I show here, we only have 2022 stations here. So this table summarize all the weather station from 2022. And I'm very excited because going into 2023, we have more stations for me to do some analyze. So 3 things I want to point out here. As you can see, plant emergency starts average in the mid-May, and the stems with 10 and 25% bloom, they are very close to each other, only 2 days different. That's what I mean. When you are seeing things only have 10, 20 GD difference, that usually can be achieved in 1 or 2 days. So really that is very concerning because so many activities happening at the same time. And this kind of proved that last year when beekeepers and blueberry growers are running, try to get their beehives into the field because it's the early season. That really tells you, by the end of May, most of our fields are around 25% of bloom. So that I think this is very helpful information and for me to kind of do reports and to tell you guys what's going on with our season and why do we get high or low yields in a certain years. Okay, so a little bit of updates on what can you expect. More updates on the GGD next season is we will continue working on the plant emergency GGD. We want to collect more data. We want to improve the accuracy of that, 213 or whatever. We want to make sure those numbers, because it's very important. This is probably one of the most important management activities in the sprout year. So we want to make sure products are applied on time and to safely not damaging our crops. So Scott is taking care of the sprout side of it, so he's going to continue working on the plant emergency. And myself or Perennia or other researchers, we will shift our gear into the crop year because there's a lot of things we need to work on to provide more information in the crop year. So this year, I will continue to validate the F2 GGD. So last year I have 5 sites, 1 in DeBerg, 1 in Greenfield, and the other 2 in Cumberland. So this year I'm trying to go to further locations. And if you have a area with weather station, you found your climate is very, very different and interesting, you want me to study, and I've be happy to pick those kind of field, because that will give me some additional information to interpret those results and the data. So that will be the one of the activities I'll be doing in 2023. The other activities I would like to do is validate those GDDs for percentage of bloom. As I say, those numbers are quite old and almost 10 years old. So we need some work to make sure those numbers are accurate, especially when you are looking at, percentage of bloom at 10 and 20 or 25. That's really, important timing for many things to happen, and quite important, very critical for pollination. So that's the second activities I'll be doing in 2023. The third activities I hope to do is to develop GDDs for the first bloom. So for the first bloom and potentially up to 50% ripening. So really the first bloom GDD can give you information on when the field will start to showing ripening fruit. So that can guide you towards, when you should place your insect traps and to monitor your SWD or maggot, whatever insect is going to reduce your yield and fruit quality during, this time of year. And this information also give you a kind of like a heads up on the harvesting, because once you reach 50% ripening, maybe another week or so, you need to really get your stuff ready. So these two information, I think is very, very practical and important for our industry, especially I think during over the last couple of seasons, our July and August, especially when you get to harvesting timing, the weather seems to very unpredictable. So those tools can help us to kind of mitigate some of the challenges from the weather and from our climate change. Yeah, so that's just a summary of what you can expect in 2024, or maybe by the end of this year, November AGM, or next year, again, in this kind of virtual sections, you can expect we will give you more updates on the plant emergency and the F2 stages, and also bloom and first bloom or ripened fruit GDD. So that will cover, quite a lot of important crop stages that are related to our management activities. And I know some other researchers, they are also working on, say, insect SWD and maggots GDD. So that will give you some information on predict when the maggots or SWD will start to, curve. And I know there are many certain weeds. Scott has weed species GDD already, as I just mentioned. The goldenrod at 20 centimeters is around 400 GDD. We hope we can bring those additional other species GDD into the management guide, but we don't want to do it too fast. We feel like this is going to confuse people because GDD for management is still kind of a new concept. My plan, and it's kind of going with the weather station program, is make sure you guys apply for a weather station and you guys achieve that 55 station. That's great. And make sure everything is installed and you guys know where to find the weather information, which that's our focus last year. So this year, our goal is to get this GDD concept to you and then give you this guide and then give you those golden numbers you should be watching. And then if you guys are comfortable and everything goes well this season, then we will start bringing in more species GDD that tells you when is the best timing for you to control, say, ship sorrel, golden or whatever there. So that's kind of the whole picture of what we can expect on this new tool to help with our management for you guys. Yeah, and that is my last slide from presentation.
That's excellent, Hugh. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm just going to unshare my screen. There, I did it. Yeah, so if you have any questions, I know when I talk to different people, they're still confused. Oh, what is GDD? But those fact sheets or all the links there, you can do it to check and study, or you can ask me questions.
Yeah, there were a few questions in the chat that have been answered in the chat, but I just wanted to point them out because I think some people would benefit from the information that was shared. So someone asked, how many hours of leaf wetness are required for monolinea infection to occur? And then Cameron Menzies and David Percival sent a really good chart about mummyberry infection. And then one other question, Hugh, this is probably for you. If these are averages and essentially estimates, wouldn't it be better to report as a range of GDD values?
Yeah, so for anything that says GDD model, I would say you can trust those numbers, because the difference between a model and the GDD averaging is the GDD model needs tons of data to be able to give you those numbers. For our averaging, I'm doing extension work, so I just basically want to know the current season and then continually gathering more data. So yes, I did have I say 173. I use 10%, plus 10% and minus 10%, and all the fields that I study are within that range. And I will mention that in the fact sheet. I need to update that fact sheet is to include F2. 40% F2 GDD there, and I will show within 10% range. They are quite accurate, and then really 10% at that time of year, you are looking at maybe a day or two difference really in there. So those are not 100% accurate. I still want to say that because I don't want to give you a phone call say, hey, here you say 173 and it doesn't happen, or it's already past 40%. Then still go to check your own field and then still do your same monitoring there. This is just a supporting tool. What sampling rate is being captured? Are you talking about the temperature here? I don't know if I quite understand the question from Alan there.
Alan, if you want to unmute yourself, oh, there you go.
Oh, yes. So for all the stations, if you purchase through MSDA and Perennia, they are able to capture temp and all the weather station data every 15 minutes. So every 15 minutes, they will upload all the information they collect and send to the cloud, and you can just look at it from your phone or from any platform there. Every 15 minutes. That's the duration they would be reporting there. There's a question about leaf wetness for monolinear infection to occur. This risks of mummyberry infection picture posted by Dr. Percival there is great, but I found one thing about leaf wetness is they are not very reliable, because in the morning when you get the dew or whatever moisture from the field, those can affect the leaf wetness, the number we collect. So I tend not to count on that too much. It's mostly after the event happened, you can go back and check the leaf wetness data, and then okay, this period of time actually I got quite a lot of moisture and the temperature is quite high, so likely my infection is going to be high. If I need second application, that can help you to determine that. But I think it's a good information to have about leaf wetness, but I just want to remind you that don't really use that too much, because it really makes a difference when you have some moisture from the field and the environment there. Yeah.
Other questions there for Hugh?
Well, I just want to say thank you to Churro Agrimar, because I hope to get an opportunity to deliver this before the season starts. But I don't think we're going to get an opportunity because the association and we have different priorities we want to say during the winter meetings on March 31st. So this opportunity really give me a stage for me to deliver things I want to say to the industrial growers before season starts. So very appreciate this opportunity, Churro Agrimar Group.
Oh, we appreciate having you on, Hugh, and appreciate your presentation. It's good information you're building up there for us to use going forward, and another tool in the toolbox.
Yeah, well, doing our best. So needs a lot of work. And then if you do use those GDDs, and feel free to just call me or text me or email me, say, Hugh, I think this number is long. I think you should do more work. I'm happy to hear that kind of comment, because really still trying to understand our growing condition and our climates here. We have so many different areas that it's interesting to learn. Yeah.
Out of curiosity, Hugh, have you done any literature research that may have been used in other crops on growing degree days and how accurate they've been able to get that for other crops?
Yeah, so I know corn GDD model seems to be the one that most popular, and then because those models develop quite early and they have different growing regions that were able to help them to collect those massive data. For us, we are only working on that for 10 years, and then with on and off, we don't really continue to have data. So rare, and we, wild blueberries, we only have that in North America and those kind of couple areas. So really, this is pretty new, and other crops, when you have data and you have more information, the accuracy of a model is higher.
So just a function of time then, and we will
Yeah,
get there.
we just need effort to understand our crop better. I know we already know wild blueberries very well, but really there's a lot inside the wild blueberry we don't know, and we need to know our enemies, our insects, our species, how they grow and when they occur, when they start to flower, etc. So those are all information we try to learn in our cropping system.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you very much, Hugh. I think our next presenter of the evening is Lise LeBlanc of LP Consulting. Are you out there somewhere, Lise?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
you're going through great.
All right, so Chloe, share screen.
You want me to share it for you?
No, I'm going to try it.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So yeah, share
You
screen.
let me know if you get it.
Looks
You-
perfect.
You got it.
Yeah, well, then the next issue is to make the slides move. We'll work that out after I see. Thank you very much, Agrimart, for including LP in your Blueberry Days. We really appreciate it. Actually, I'd like to let the audience know that we appreciate it more than you know, because a lot of our research work includes sap testing, which is very time consuming in blueberry plants because the leaves are so low. So not only do we have our crew and our 4 summer students, but we also have Chloe, Luke, and Abby out there. We just beg for them every time. So we really appreciate Agrimart giving us a hand when we need more hands. So thank you very much. Also, I want to mention that the GGD work is really exciting, and it's really fantastic. The good work that is happening here in the Maritimes in low bush blueberry research, and I think we're doing more than we've ever done before for the industry, and it's a pretty exciting time for the industry. For anybody who doesn't know who I am, I'm Lise LeBlanc, founder and president of LP Consulting, and we've been working with farmers for over 30 years. Don't count back the age for that. So we really do three silos. We develop crop management programs for farmers. So we've developed about 4,000 nutrient management plans. Another area that we work in is we conduct agricultural research. We put out about 100 to 150 on-farm research trials a year, which really helps us then be able to implement what we find in our research into our crop management programs. And then thirdly, we work with agriculture and industry to evaluate if their waste resources can be a real benefit for agriculture. And I will be talking about that because we have found some great benefits for the blueberry industry. So I'm going to get started and we'll see if these move like they should. Perfect. So I just talked about who we are, and you can find us on our webpage, on Instagram, and also on Twitter. So let's move right into this because everybody knows I like to talk a lot about the information that we get. So I don't want to run out of time, but I am starting 15 minutes early. We've been talking about pesticides so far this evening, and now I want to move into a different area, which is blueberry fertility. And we have a lot of fertility challenges. The climate affects it, your pest control affects blueberry yields. your crop, the economy, the pH and nutrients of your field. And I'm going to talk to you more about that. Over the last number of years, we've really seen how the nutrient levels in the fields really affect your foliar applications and soils. Soils are really key to really understand, because blueberry soils are very different than your regular crop soils. Soils have a huge influence on your yield. We're not just growing crops, we're growing our soils. So by improving our soils, we also improve the ability of your blueberry crops to produce those high yields, because that's what we want. Whether it's a low price or a high price, we need the highest yields we can produce. Our research continues to debunk two recommendations that we continue to hear out there in the industry. The first one is that I hear over and over again that recommendations are given that you don't need to fertilize your low bush blueberries. That is completely incorrect. And we continue to add control plots in all our research so that we can determine what the yield is with fertilizer and what the yield is without fertilizer. And there's a significant difference. The other recommendations we hear out there is you don't need granular fertilizer, only foliar. I have been giving you presentations for the last 20 years about how that is incorrect. When you think about a granular fertilizer, you can put on a lot of NPK. If you only put on a foliar, you're looking at only putting on like 2 to 4 kilograms of nutrient. Foliars were never designed to replace granular fertilizers, and the data continues to show that. Foliars are to give you that extra little bump, or if you're having issues in your crop, they weren't good at taking up some of the nutrients, you can top it up later on, but it's not a replacement, never will be a replacement. And regardless of the constant presentations I give on that, plus we have all the data to support it, we continue to keep hearing that. For the last 15 years, we've been focusing a lot on phosphorus, because phosphorus is really key to so many things in blueberries. It's important for your root growth, your flower development, your blooming potential. It helps your plant blueberries against adverse conditions. It helps improve nitrogen uptake, and you have a better fruit quality. Phosphorus uptake is really reduced during cold, wet spring and dry summers, which we have here. Phosphorus is tied up with aluminum when we have high aluminum, and all the maritime provinces have high aluminum. So even sometimes if we continue to keep building our phosphorus, the aluminum, if we have really high levels, will continue to tie that up. And then you combine that with our low pH that we have blueberries in. Phosphorus helps your plant grow into those bare areas. And that's how also we increase yield, is not just by the plant, but increasing the plant circumference, like grow into those bare areas. And phosphorus is so important with building and developing a good mycorrhizal relationship, which is so key in blueberries. So phosphorus is not the only nutrient, but it's a very key nutrient that we've been trying to overcome in blueberry fields for the last 15 years or more. Every year we keep learning more, but it's not an easy one. Back in 2016 and 2018, for some of you remember, we were able to get new data that was brand new to the low bush blueberry industry. And this has been the fundamental block that we've built new research around. So Agri-K, we were lucky that Agri-K was able to fund this. It had nothing to do with any of their products. They also wanted to see, where are we deficient in what nutrients at what growth stage in the crop in the sprout year. So we followed numerous blueberry fields, both high producing and low producing, through crop and sprout stages. And we did the sap sampling, and we're able to determine brand new data that we never had before. Just to quickly go through that so that it makes sense when you look at our research. In nitrogen, so what we want to do is we want to fall between these two optimum lines throughout the season. So in nitrogen, we found that we didn't have enough in our crop in the sprout year, but we were good into during the bloom. For phosphorus, really interesting in that our biggest issue for phosphorus is during the sprout year. We found that we had very low levels in the sprout year, but fortunately, even with low levels in the sprout year, we had optimum levels during bloom, which is a really important time for phosphorus. So we have enough phosphorus in our bloom stage, but we don't have enough phosphorus for spread. For potassium, we need to get more potassium into our plant. We start off at a pretty decent level, and I think that's because we're putting on potassium fertilizer in the spring, so we're at good levels, but we drop by tip dieback. And then we're low at crop, and we're very low at harvest. And potassium is really important, and we'll talk about that later. Boron, really, this is really good to see in boron in terms of we've always applied boron with our fertilizer blends, and we see over and over again in the tissue and in the sap, when we put it in our fertilizer blends, we have more than enough boron during the sprout year. That's not the time to be looking at adding more boron. But then we crash at bloom. And boron is so essential for pollen tube health and, you know, ensuring that we have good flowering to produce good buds. So we need to get a lot more boron in that crop year. Zinc, we have never here hit optimum for zinc, but we'll see that some of the things we've done, we've moved the needle, and that's what it's all about. But we've always been really low across crop and sprout. Iron, you know, I continue to hear, well, we have high iron levels in our soil, so we don't need iron. They're absolutely right, we have high iron, but our plants, not only blueberries, but most of our crops do not take up iron very well. And you can see here that in our iron chart, we have never achieved optimum in the blueberries. Molybdenum, this was a real shocker to us because over the last 30 years with tissue testing and soil testing, we've never tested for molybdenum. It's not in the lab protocol. But when we started doing sap testing, we saw that molybdenum is extremely deficient in our crops. And from looking at research in some of the soils, we are very deficient in molybdenum, and this is really important to move that needle. Then we look at calcium. You know, we know calcium is so important in our soils. It's hard to have good calcium in our blueberry soils because you have low pH. You can't lime it to get more calcium. That's why farmers, say farmers in PEI that use a lot of gypsum, they're essentially bathing their soils in calcium. But calcium is also really important in the crop. And we'll talk about why that's important. But we need good calcium at harvest time, which we're seeing at that time that the calcium increases because that's important for your good, strong, I can't remember, all of a sudden around the fruit cover. You know what I mean, fruit. So
Cell wall thickness.
Yes, it's 7 o'clock at night after a long day at work. But we're seeing here that calcium has a big drop during bloom. So we need to increase calcium there. And then of course we have our big three that are huge problem soil parameters in blueberries. We have excessive manganese, way over the top. We often deal with high chlorides, and that comes from some of our fertilizers that we use. And we have excessive aluminum. So when we have that in our crop, what it's doing is it's blocking other good nutrients from being part of the process. So once we learned all that, we wanted to know, are we moving the needle? So we developed some crop and sprout fertility program based on that SAP research. And every year we continue to improve on that. So to start off with, some of our research we've been doing is with Agri-K. And Agri-K has been a strong supporter of the maritime low bush blueberry industry. They have put significant amount of money into your industry. We did the 2016 and 2017 that SAP testing program with them. We also did a phosphorus foiler project with them because blueberry producers tended to use a lot of 10-52-10, and Agri-K had a different phosphorus foiler with smaller molecules to get into the leaves. So we wanted to test that out. So we did that on large scale, small scale, many years. We looked at doing a foiler program to see if we could move the needle in those areas where our nutrients were low. So that's been ongoing for years. And then every year after we look at our results and we look at our yield results, then we do another 2-year program and we shift some of that around to see if we can continue to improve. So we're still ongoing with this. This year, we're going to be doing a crop. We did sprout last year. So in 2020 to 2021, based on all that data, during sprout, we applied at 3 growth stages and we applied the iron, the zinc, and the 9-24-3. We did that data. We moved the needle, but we didn't move the needle enough. This is backwards here. This should have been zinc DL. Zinc, we saw we could put zinc DL on and we moved the needle and we got it into optimum levels. We were still struggling with the iron, so we moved to 2. And then we still want to have a higher level of phosphorus. So this year we tried 3 liters per acre, and then they have a new product called Clean Moly, which is your molybdenum that we talked about that is so deficient in your blueberry crops. So we added that to see if we would move the needle. And SAP testing is really important because tissue testing, when you spray something on it, and if the crop doesn't take it up, it sits on that tissue surface. So then when you take the tissue sample, you send it off to the lab, everything gets all crushed together, and it looks like that nutrient got into the plant when in reality it sat on the plant. So really what it ended up being is that nutrient just ended up costing you money, but you didn't get any return on it. The SAP test, it's like a blood test, and we take the samples, we ship it off to the Netherlands, and I don't know how they do it, but they squeeze the SAP out. That means that nutrient was actually within the plant. So it's more real than what the tissue will provide for you. 2 years ago for bloom, we had applied at early bloom Cal-Bor moly, so the calcium, the boron, the moly that we needed. We also did another application at mid-bloom, and then post-bloom we put iron and zinc, because again, all those things were deficient at that time. We moved the needle, but we wanted to move it even more. So this year, coming this spring, in early bloom, we're increasing the Cal-Bor moly, plus we're adding some topset, which is a foiler boron, to add a little bit more boron. In mid-bloom, we're going with the Cal-Bor moly again, and post-bloom, we're going with the iron and the zinc again, because that really worked for us. So if we look at this chart, this is molybdenum. The red is what we naturally saw on those research projects. See, it's not over that green line at all. The dotted line is the original sprout crop year where we tried to increase it. And we were able to increase it in the bloom stage with Cal-Bor moly, just a little bit. That's why we've increased it this year. Now, for this year's work, we have 2 fields with that clean moly where we couldn't move it at all. We applied clean moly, which is new on the market, and look what we got. It just shot up. We definitely got the moly into the plant. So this year we're going to follow it along and see if we keep it within the optimum level. So we're really excited about that because that moly converts your phosphorus for your crop uptake. It helps with your nitrogen utilization. It helps with the cell walls, and it prevents an increase of nitrate and ammonium acid buildup within your crop, because when it builds it up, it increases your insect and disease issues. So here we've seen that we significantly increase moly in our blueberries. So I'm really excited about this clean moly product. Our phosphorus, again, this was the original, the red line of what phosphorus looks like in our crop. So the 2021, when we added a new program, we did increase it early on, but we still dropped back by tip dieback. And then we had some growth again. So did we move the needle? Yes. If you look at this, we moved the needle from the original where your crops are at, but we needed to move it more into here. So again, we saw that the 924.3 increased it, but we still didn't get it up there at tip dieback. So we're going to do some more work on that. And as we talked about, all the good things that phosphorus is. And the many years of research, we found that the 924.3 increased the SAP P levels. 1052.10 never increased it. And I know I have clients who says, Lise, I seen a difference in the 1052.10. But always I say, did you leave a control strip? No, but comparing it to the next field, it looked good. How do you know it wouldn't have looked good anyway? And when we also looked at the SAP levels for the nitrogen and the potassium, there wasn't a change. The formulation of the 924.3 is far superior to the 1052.10. The other thing we also have been noticing over research over the past 8 years is that if your soil phosphorus levels are not at optimum, when you apply 924.3 or 1052.10, your uptake is far lower. So your soil P levels need to be at optimum for your foliar to work. So if you cut out your granular fertilizers and you go all to foliar, you're just going to keep going down, 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 and you're throwing good money after bad. So that's a big mistake. If we look at potassium, so here we have the red, which is how your crop grows, and we're low pretty much from tip dieback all the way through to harvest. So in 2020-21, we moved the needle and we put it in optimum here throughout the sprout year, and we greatly increased it during bloom, but we still need a little bit more at harvest because of the strong cell walls. This year, we applied, when we looked at it, we actually moved the needle higher in here. So we're really happy about that. And your potassium is important for your strong stems, increase your soil, your crop health. You get bigger and higher quality blueberry fruits. It helps your plants overwinter better. It's important for disease resistant. I know when I walk through blueberry fields, if it's got a lot of septoria and disease like that, I typically ask what you put on for potassium, and they've not put on enough. And potassium is another nutrient. If you don't have your soil levels at optimum, your foliar is not going to make a difference. So we need to build our soil before we start worrying about the other things. Zinc. I'm really excited about zinc. Here, your crop, if you don't add the zinc, you're always deficient. The 2021, we were able to increase zinc, but we were below here. So what I want to see is this year we increased our zinc a little bit, and we're going to follow it and have a little bit higher levels after post bloom to see it. And this is the first time since in 2020 that we've ever put zinc in the optimum. Now, for the last, I don't know, maybe 10 years, our recommendations on granular fertilizer was to use mez, because mez has zinc in it. And those farmers that have used mez, we've seen an increase in the tissue, and we've seen an increase in their soils. So by adding a foliar together with that mez, we've been putting zinc into the optimum range. And here is what the tissues look like. Here is a no zinc application, and here is a zinc application. And zinc is important for your seed formation, your root and tissue growth, your growth hormones. It helps it function better at lower temperatures, and it helps build those root hairs that we need to take in the nutrients. Iron is a tough one for us. You can see here that even with the 2020-2021 application of iron, we were still below optimum. So we increased the application rate, and we've seen that we've jumped it up, but it's a real difficult one. and it's always been deficient. And iron is really important for your chlorophyll within your plant. We've increased it in our tissue, but what's really important is seeing it here in our sap. Now, again, boron, we have plenty of boron in the sprout year. What we have to focus on is boron in the crop year. So our granular boron is providing, the crop is really good at taking up the boron. We significantly increase boron at bloom with Calbor Moly. Now we're going to add a little bit more this year and see if we can move that up. Calcium, it's the engine. We talked about that. So we're going to see with our Calbor Moly if we can maintain it here. And you can see here at 20% bloom, we did take it from deficient to within the optimum. So that Calbor Moly is really working. Last year, in 2021, our first 2 years, we compared the foliar program to the control, and that would be regular fertilizer control. And as we reported last year, we had an increase of $228 per acre. That's a return on your investment. We took off the additional $85 per acre cost to implement the foliar. And even though there's an additional 85 acre cost, we still netted $228. So I know farmers were really busy implementing this program, but we want to see if we can make you more money. So the next project that we just finished out with 2 years is with Mosaic. We've worked with Mosaic in the past since 2016 on corn and soybean, but not actual research in blueberries. And so we've been recommending Mez and Aspire in blueberries because it makes sense. It worked for us in corn and soybeans. We saw a return on it. But we work with Mosaic to see, well, let's see if we actually do have a return on investment. And maybe there are different ways to apply it. Because remember with potassium, we saw that potassium was low at bloom. So we developed a program around there. And what is Mez and Aspire? How are they different than other regular granular fertilizers? Now, Mez and Aspire are what we call premium fertilizers, meaning that they have technology to make them better than other fertilizers, but they're premium. They come at a higher cost. But within the prill, the nutrients are all within the prill and they work together. So therefore you have more even distribution throughout the field. The nutrients are spread separately. Nutrients that are spread separately, they have different weights. So lighter ones will land closer to your spreader while the heavier ones will go out further. So it's uneven. So Mez contains 4 nutrients on one prill. You have your nitrogen, you have your phosphorus, and that phosphorus includes MAP rather than DAP. And MAP can increase your phosphorus efficiency uptake by 40 to 80%, which is what we need in blueberries. It includes both kinds of sulfur, slow release and quick release. We need sulfur throughout the season, and it includes a zinc. So if you look at these pictures, here is a Mez granular, and all 4 nutrients are at once. So no matter where that prill goes, where it lands near that crop, it gets all 4. Now, if we have to mix them up from different fertilizers, you know, here's boron, the white, they're over here. There's extra over here. Oh, the black is your phosphorus. There's no black over here. Here's some phosphorus over here. It's not even. Aspire is the same thing, except we have 2 nutrients in one prill, and that's your potassium and your boron. So your potassium, 58% of it, it's 58% potassium, and it's potassium oxide. Remember how I talked about our chloride levels are high and they're affecting our yields? That's really coming from your MOP potassium, which is the traditional potassium we always use. So this is a kinder, gentler potassium that doesn't increase your chloride in your fields. And then the boron in it, we have both the slow release boron and the quick release boron, because we need boron to be spread throughout the year. And if you think about boron in a tote, you might only have like 40 kilograms out of 1,000 kilograms, and you're hoping that that's all going to be evenly mixed once it gets in the bag and it travels to your farm and then you dump it in your spreader. It doesn't work that way. So I'm really excited about these type of fertilizer products because we can be more even. But do we make money? So we did research on it, and based on the soil test, this particular field needed 10, 25, 15 plus 6 sulfur plus 0.6 zinc plus BO13. The standard, with the standard fertilizer blend to make this, I would have used DAP, sulfate of potash, muriate of potash, boron, and zinc. So these are all different granulars. Then we did Mez plus Aspire plus urea, all applied in the spring. Then we wanted to try, well, what if we did something different? So we put the Mez blend, which has no potash, we put that on in the spring. And then at tip dieback, we applied the Aspire, which is the boron and the potassium, to see if we can move some of that into early crop. Then we also decided, well, what if we try doing Mez in the sprout year in the spring? And then the following spring of the crop year, we applied the Aspire. So we're putting on the potash and we're putting on the boron when we're seeing it low. And then, of course, the untreated control, no fertilizers. So we looked at all of these to see how that would affect yield. And there was a significant difference between all the fertilizers, of course, and the control. And the one that had the highest yield, I'm happy to say, is the Mez and the Aspire, all applied in the spring. Why do you say I'm happy about that? Because that's one trip across the fields, not splitting it up. So this saved you even more money rather than going on twice. That one is the one that produced the highest yield out of all of them at 11,000 pounds to the acre. The untreated control was 5,700 pounds to the acre. Many of you would say 5,700 pounds to the acre. That's amazing. That's a great yield. I'd be happy with that. But by putting some fertilizer on, you more than double it. That's when you have to start thinking about that untreated doesn't work. But how much did it cost you compared to putting no fertilizer on? So we had 2 fields. Here's your controls. They are not looking good. The average yield, when I looked at it, if we compared just your regular standard fertilizer, nothing fancy about it, we increased our yield by 85.6%. The premium fertilizer increased the yield by 93.3%. There is no way that the recommendations of you don't need fertilizer and you'll get your good yields work. Yes, was this a good yield? Because it was in a good field. But you still significantly increase your yields. And what about the return on investment? Because for us to give these recommendations to our farmers, there has to be a return. So we compared the standard fertilizer to the Mez blend, and we found that we had $306 net profit. I'm not talking gross. We've already taken the cost out, net profit. So to choose, yes, the premium blend will look more expensive per ton, but if you're going to get $300 per acre return, it's well worth it. So again, return on investment is really important. So this worked out really great, and I'll talk to you later about what we're going to do for next steps. So this was a real success. We also did work with Verdiezen for sprout and crop with 2 products with Verdiezen. They have Avail, and Avail is a phosphorus fertilizer enhancer. So we were pretty excited about this because it helps to reduce the soil fixation of phosphorus fertilizer to make it more available to the crop. That's how Avail is supposed to work. So we coated our regular fertilizer, standard fertilizer, with Avail. The second thing we looked at was Primacy Alpha. Primacy Alpha is a foliar biostimulant, and Nadine talked a little bit about biostimulants. There's more of those coming out on the market. It's important to do the research behind it to make sure that they work. Primacy Alpha is supposed to increase your nutrient uptake, utilization and delivery, and to promote plant health and stress tolerance. So we developed a program with them to try that out. Again, we had our standard fertilizer. It was another area of the same field. Then we had our standard fertilizer plus Avail that we applied in the spring. Then we compared it to our standard fertilizer plus just that primacy alpha, but we also included that aggregate 924.3, right? To see if we can get that primacy alpha to make that phosphorus get taken up by the leaf even better. Then we did the whole thing, the standard that was blended with Avail in the spring, and then later on in July, we did a foliar top dress of primacy alpha plus the 924.3, and of course we compared it to control no fertilizer. And what did we have? Well, again, no fertilizer. It's a good field. Was 5,700 pounds to the acre. The standard fertilizer increased in yield by 51.5%, while the standard fertilizer plus the Avail plus the 924.3 plus the primacy alpha increased in yield by 76.5% over no fertilizer. And the whole blend increased by 16.5% yields over the standard fertilizer. So that was significant. Even the standard fertilizer was 8,600, but by adding this, we got over 10,000 pounds to the acre. Of course, the untreated control had the lowest yield. So we almost doubled the yield by putting fertilizers on. But what about profit loss? Well, yes, does this look too good to be true? Yes, that's why we're going to do more work on it, because that's the first year we did it. But we found that using the fertilizer, the Avail, the aggregate, and the primacy alpha, we did a profit of $918 per acre. That was the average. So we had a really, really good field, and our return on investment was $1,700 per acre. Our really bad field, we got $284 per acre. What I mean by bad field is that the nutrient levels were really low, the yields tended to be lower, but we still increased our profit gain by $284. Now this is amazing. That's why we're going to continue on with the project and see what we get for a profit increase, net profit. We know we have a net profit increase. Is it as high as this? I don't know. Stay tuned. And then the last project I want to talk about is the blueberry compost project. Some of you were out to our field day this summer. That was great. We did all kinds of things. This was a 5-year project. We did it on corn and soybean, but we also wanted to do it on blueberry just because of the type of soils that you have and the importance of improving your microbial community to help your blueberry plants produce those high yields while they're growing at those low pHs. So we just completed the final report from our 2018 to 2022. And there's so many good things about compost. Compost will improve your soil condition, helps with drainage, good water holding capacity, which is really important. Now we're seeing climate change. We have a lot of drought. Helps break down wood trash. We've seen that in our research. I'll show it to you. It provides the fertilizer. It also stimulates microbial activity for healthy soil environment. It reduces your reliance on inorganic fertilizers, and we saw how the price of fertilizers went up. It has phosphorus in it to help with spread. It provides a lot of organic matter on top of those shallow soils that you have. And we got an approved letter of insurance from Canada GAP to be able to use it. So there's a lot of nutrients found in compost. So the fertilizer value, this isn't what you pay per ton, is depending on what the prices of fertilizers on the world market is, it's worth between $100 and $150 a ton if you bought everything that was in it. So what we did over the 8 years is we applied 10 tons to the acre of mature and immature compost every year on our same plots, compared it to no compost application, just fertilizer, and compared it also to one really heavy rate of 30 tons to the acre, and that was it over the 5 years. And this whole project, not just blueberries, but also in the corn and soybeans, we found data that is leading edge, not just in here, but across Canada, North America, and the world. This kind of work has not been done, and we're so excited. So let's take a look at some of this. This is only in our blueberry fields between 2019 and 2022. So the control is always the blue. And so when we look at our phosphorus levels, this is our phosphorus levels in our blueberry field. Look at the phosphorus levels that through just applying compost. Now, in the control, we put fertilizers down. In the compost, we put no fertilizers. So these two are the 10 ton and this is the 30 ton. Of course, the 30 ton would have put a lot of potassium down, but look at how much it carried it over. The potassium, we need a lot of potassium in our blueberry fields. Here again is the control. And again, we have our compost that really significantly increased levels. If we look at the calcium, calcium is always low in our blueberry fields. There's a lot of calcium in compost. Again, here we can see the control and the compost increased calcium. Here is your 10 ton to the acre. Here's your 30 ton, and there's your control. So significantly improve the calcium, and the calcium in your soil is the engine to make all your nutrients work. So we're really excited about that. What about soil health? We looked at organic matter. Organic matter increased in all composts, which totally makes sense because you're not adding any kind of product to increasing organic matter. So this is going to hold on to more nutrients. What about the CEC? The CEC is your cation exchange capacity. That's how good your soils hold on to your nutrients. And again, we see the control and we see the compost. We have changed the CEC in these blueberry fields to increase the CNC to help hold on to everything that you apply. So we have a much healthier soil, but that's not all. What about soil microbiology? You know, there's a lot more talk in the last 2 or 3 years about soil microbiology and how it's so important to our soils, and we have not paid enough attention to it. Soil microbiology improves your crop and soil health. It will help decompose some of that organic matter so that you can have more release of nutrients. It cycles nutrients. It helps maintain and hold on to nutrient reservoirs so it's available to keep feeding your crop. Two great things it does is it degrades pollutants and it naturally repels disease and insects. And there's been a lot of research about that to make your soils healthier. So first of all, we looked at the active carbon. And here we saw, this is a control, as we continue to increase our levels of compost, we increase our active carbon. And carbon is really essential in your soils for good carbon health. Carbon is also going to be important as we start to be able to sell carbon sequestration on the carbon market. And as some of you know, we've sent out some of our videos. We are working on a model to be able to sell, to work with our farmers so that they can sell their carbon sequestration at premium levels. You know, a lot of the carbon pricing out there is $10, $20, $30 a ton. It's because it's all just written on a piece of paper. We're taking it further. We've teamed up with Row Carbon. We are doing the validation. We're out there doing the testing. And for farmers to be able to utilize things like compost or wood ash or other things to sequester that carbon, you're going to have even more carbon. And we're following it through. We're validating it. It's not just written on paper. So we'll be able to sell that on the market for $200 a ton. And as a matter of fact, last week, I was just invited to go with the Trade Commission to London, England, to meet with potential public companies that are looking to buy these premium carbon. So I'm really excited about it, a little nervous, but you know, we're moving forward for our farmers on this. So we talked about microbial soil activity. Here we look at the microbial soil activity, and our immature compost of course comes out on top because immature compost is not fully matured. It still has a lot of good bug action. You don't want that in a bag so that a homeowner buys it and opens it up and you have all that odor because it's working. But we know how to handle odor, and as a matter of fact, on this research, none of our farmers could tell the difference between an immature compost and a mature compost, but it had a lot more of those good bugs. And again, this total gram negative microbes are really good bugs that you want to have it over 6,000. None of them were over 6,000 except for the IC10. So That immature compost really gave those fields a boost. Overall, the soil health index, how healthy is your soil? They rated the mature compost 10 as having the highest. So this is a lot of really good data. But of course, you know us, LP Consulting, we like to have fun. So we continue to do the underwear test. And the more the underwear is eaten up, the more good bugs you have in your soil. It's a cheap and easy way to see how well your fields are doing. So if you want to look at how well your fields are doing, bury men's white cotton underwear, you know, after the soil warms up, dig it up 6 weeks later and see what you got. So here in our blueberry field, we have the control. Yeah, it looks dirty, but there's not a lot of eating there. For some reason, the mature compost 30 didn't have as much eaten up. You had more with the immature 10 because you had more bugs from the immature 10. Sorry, immature 10 is right here, mature 10. Look at this immature 10. There was a lot of good bug action, and that's what we want in your fields. So let's also look at the new cleared land, because while we had the data, we had Pictou County and Colchester County work with us and provided the compost. So we took some of this new cleared land and we thought, let's try putting 30 ton to the acre on one field, and then on the side on the next field, don't put any compost on. What we saw was that the compost really broke up all that wood waste, because all that carbon in the wood needs to be eaten up by those microbes. So here we were 2 years later. This is what the soil looks like in the new cleared field with the compost applied, and this is what the soil looks like in the new cleared field with no compost. So you can really tell that in this field, you're going to have faster movement and quicker ability to harvest. And in early July of 2022, look at the difference of the field. This is the field in early July that had the compost on that new cleared land. This is a field that had no compost. So you had much slower growth happening to that. And then we also pre and post soil tested. So here's our soil test after doing compost 2 years later. The control, the organic matter, of course, was lower at 3.9 compared to the compost at 5.4. But look at the nutrient status. The control, of course, in your new cleared field, it's only 25 phosphorus. You don't have any, and 50 for potassium. While the compost 2 years later built it up to 433 and 339. And look at this calcium. Typical blueberry fields have 440. They're between 400 and 500. Some might have 600 calcium. Look at it with the compost. We brought it up to 2183 without bringing up the pH. This is fantastic. The magnesium is up and the CEC is 10 versus 5. So this is going to hold on to any kind of nutrients you're going to put on much better than that control. So we are so excited at this data. Like, this is new data. This is something that's going to be fantastic for farmers. Then the last blueberry research that we did with compost is our clients are always saying, how do we get our bare spots to grow? We need to get these spots to grow so that we have a better yield all the way across the field. And some farmers are using sawdust, which to me didn't make a lot of sense because sawdust is all carbon. So then I thought, well, why don't we try putting compost in there, because compost will increase the organic matter and feed it. So we did. So we across this field, we took 15 bare spots and we compared it to compost to sawdust, and we did measurements so we could track the growth of the blueberries. Now, of course, since you have a much nicer field, 2 months later, you've got a lot more weed growth and things like that. But your herbicide program is going to take care of that. We cut the weed growth off all the sites, and guess what we found? This is what it looked like underneath, because blueberries do not like to spread into open areas. So the compost site, we had all these new blueberry plants, but look at the sawdust site, nothing. And we saw this over and over again in all these sites. This is really exciting information for us to present to you. But here's the downside. There's a challenge. which needs to be addressed by the compost facilities. Not all compost facilities produce clean compost. Depending on the facility, there might be foreign material in there, you know, like pieces of plastic, maybe a fork and a knife. We're working on it. We're working with the compost facilities to have, you'll never have 100% clean product, but you'll have pretty good product. And what it does to blueberry fields is really important, and we got to clean it up. Now, it costs a lot of money for municipalities to produce a compost, you know, anywhere from $100 to $200 a ton. Well, they can't sell it to you for that. So now we're asking them to put even more money in to give you a clean product. I think that as we move forward and we're able to get these compost credits, carbon credits, the money then is going to be there so that the farmers can have money to help pay for all this, and the municipalities can have money on it to help clean it up for our farmers. I think this is going to be a great relationship as we move this forward. But just remember, not all compost facilities are the same. So if you do order compost from a particular facility and you find that there's a lot of foreign material, don't brush all the compost facilities with that brush. And we know which compost facilities actually have the cleanest compost. So where are we going in 2023? Well, with Agri-K, we're continuing on to year 2 of that foliar program. With Mosaic, we're taking that Mez plus Aspire and comparing it to the standard fertilizer, but large scale, not small scale plots. We're looking at putting it on 4 farm fields. We're looking at splitting those fields, and the farmer applies it with his equipment as well as harvest. So if anybody's interested in working with us on that, we would love to work with you. But we're still going to take all the same data. With Verdesian, we're looking at 2 different projects with them. The first is to take that Avail plus Primacy Alpha on the large scale on 4 big fields, having the farmer apply it. And we're going to take the same data. We're going to see if that return on our small plot is as awesome as it looked. The other one is we're looking at applying that Primacy Alpha with the fungicides in early spring in the crop year. They've done a lot of work on that with high bush blueberries. They're seeing some really good success. We're going to see if we see it in low bush. So we're really excited that these companies continue to invest in your industry. So it's important that we recognize that they're putting that money into your industry. We're waiting on confirmation from 3 more companies to do more blueberry research. One is a herbicide that on a small plot locally look great for fescue control, because I can tell you that's a big one. And we're also looking at some other fungicides, and we're looking at some other potential foliars. So we should hear back from those companies. We figured out this year with our blueberry research, we're probably going to need around 24 blueberry fields. So we're really looking forward to working with a lot of you. And for you to see it working on your farm firsthand, that's pretty exciting too. And of course, we're fun to work with. So as LP Consulting, we continue to shrink that knowledge gap for blueberries with investments to support our local blueberry industry. And I can tell you that doing this and helping move your industry ahead so that you can have higher yields, so that you can make more money, it's not an individual in this industry. It takes a community. It takes everybody working together. Agrimart is huge in supporting investments in the blueberry industry. Agri-K has been with us for years to move you ahead. Mosaic and Verdesian have been moving in to work in blueberries. They see the potential of being able to help blueberry farmers get those yields. And then of course, with this blueberry, Environment's on board, Divert Nova Scotia, Halifax C&D with their free gypsum that they're providing our blueberry farmers, because we're helping each other. Irving with the wood ash, we've got great results on blueberries. Pictou County Solid Waste, Colchester County. It really takes a tribe, a village to move the blueberry industry ahead, and we're really excited to be able to be part of that. And I look forward to giving you the revolutionary research 4.0. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, Lise, you've packed a lot in there in a short time.
Did it? I still went over my 45 minutes.
No, you're good there. No, that's all fine. 'Cause you had
Good.
a lot of information in there.
Amazing information.
So we had, I think, a few questions in the chat box, but if
Okay, if
anyone
I,
had some questions they want to ask directly, just unmute yourself and ask away.
okay. Anybody have any questions? I know sometimes you guys are shy and then you call us up tomorrow, and we're here tomorrow to be able to answer your questions. The data that we've been getting and working with everybody has just been phenomenal for the blueberry industry. And we're fortunate, although we're small, we're fortunate that these companies see that they should be investing with us, and not only doing small plot, but the big plots. The 5-acre section. It's good to look good in a small plot, but when we start getting it out on the big fields, that's when it really shines. And we're looking forward to bringing people out to look at some of these projects, and working closely with Truro Agrimart, because they have been key to encouraging these companies to work with us and work with you.
All
So
right, so
Lise, are you able to see some of the questions in the chat box?
Oh, okay. I'm going to click on the chat box.
Or we can read them out to you. It's whichever you want to do.
Which one's the first one?
so
Should
the
fertilizer only be applied in the sprout year, or should we be doing a split application for both sprout and fruit year? You kind of answered that, but I'll let you go back.
Yeah, Alan, we did that research where we were putting on the potash. Remember the potash and the boron? We tried it at tip dieback, and then we also tried it in the following spring in the crop year to split it. And we found we had our highest yields by putting it all on our granular fertilizer in the spring. Now we're trying to figure out, okay, what kind of foliars or what kind of biostimulants or whatever that would continue to keep increasing those yields to add on to that. What's the next one?
the next one says, where does the nutritional parameters come from? And that one came in at the early presentation when we were talking about SAP.
Can I have some more context around that? Oh, is it? Yeah.
I think he means like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jesse, but I think he means like, where did the optimum levels come from on your
Yeah.
SAP?
They came from Nova Crop Control, is the company in Netherlands, have done a lot of research. There's also another company in the States. So we took both their optimum levels and utilized both of them, but the Nova Crop Control seem to be much further advanced in the amount of research that they've done. So that's where that came from. Is that it?
That's all that's in the chat, but if anyone has any ones that they want to say, just unmute yourself and feel free. Oh, Jeff has one here. Have you considered putting together a fact sheet chart with timing suggestions for each fertilizer application? Also, do you think it might be practical to align the foliage sprays with other applications, less passes over the fields?
Okay, let's talk about the first one. Yes, I just wanted to have more research data to be able to put these fact sheets, but we're moving forward enough to start putting some information together on that, and then having it to our clients, giving it to Truro Agrimart so that they can provide it to their clients. And yes, it is more practical to be able to blend it with our fungicides and herbicides and things like that. So a number of these applications that we've chosen were during those times to be able to do that for those foliars, because we don't want you to have to make an extra pass. So Agri-K, because we did a lot of foliar work with Agri-K, they've been doing a lot of blending research for us so that we can make sure that it blends with a wide range of different pesticides so that we don't find out that it clumps up in your sprayer. Yeah, like the 924-3 with, it can only go with certain products because that phosphate clumps it up. And I know that because I originally blended it all together in one bottle and I couldn't spray it. So I have 2 bottles now. So we're figuring out how to make that work.
Right, and another one just came in.
That's a
So
really good question. As per CCME standards, compost is supposed to be mature before distribution, is it not? How do you get around that as this provides the most microbial activity? Very good question. Right now, the regulations are that the compost has to be mature in order to be sold. But as you can see behind this, Nova Scotia Environment has been part of this project. And so we've been meeting about the data, and they are very open and will be changing the Nova Scotia regulations. And we're figuring out the best way of doing that. Because I know that Compost Council of Canada was very concerned about this trial because they spent so many years in teaching people what compost is, and they don't want municipalities to just willy-nilly sell immature compost to, say, soil blenders that are located within cities that could release a lot of odor. So how we think we're going to handle it is that if they put in it as an immature compost, it can only be sold to agricultural farmers as a soil amendment, and we're not going to call it compost. We're going to call it something else. So yes, it requires a change in regulations. You can change them provincially. And Monday, I'm giving the same presentation. I'm doing a residual. I'm in the second year of a 3-year project with New Brunswick Agriculture and New Brunswick Environment. And that is also one of my recommendations, that we change that farmers could have immature compost.
So Lise, if farmers are wanting to do the compost now, do they arrange that through you, or is it still not available regularly?
I think if you called any municipal compost facility, they'd be really happy to sell it to you. But I'm just telling you, they're not all ready. So if you're interested in compost, give us a call and we'll be able to connect you with a facility that's nearby that we feel pretty confident in.
Great, thanks.
Is there things besides compost? I mean, the Mosaic, the Verdesian, the Agri-K, we've seen return on investment, which is a really important part for you, net profits. That's really fantastic data. And I hope you can see through this research work, it's not the first time that we showed that we can double our yields even in poor fields with applying fertilizers. So not applying granular fertilizers is going down definitely the wrong road. And not just saying that because this is a Truro Agrimart session. We've seen and done the research on that. And we also see for phosphorus and potassium, which are 2 really important nutrients in blueberries, that if your soils are not at optimum levels, foliars are not going to work for you. And you will never increase your levels in your soils with a foliar. Foliars are important, but for a different reason than what some of those recommendations are going out there for. And there's our webpage down there. You can contact us there. I'm happy to talk about any of this data and how it could work for your farm, or through Truro Agrimart, because we always keep them apprised of our good research. There's other research that we do, and research that we do not see an improvement in blueberry fields, or we do not see a rate of return. You will never hear us talking about it.
Is there any other questions for Lise? We don't want to let her off and get a few more minutes left.
And there's the team, the LP team down there. So we'll also keep you apprised of our upcoming agricultural carbon program. We're working hard at it. We want you to have the premium pricing. We want to have a system in place that you can easily use, and we want row carbon to be easily able to build up a significant multi-million-dollar platform for our farmers.
That would be nice.
Yes. So far, so good. Well, thank you very much. I
you,
appreciate you having
Lise.
me.
Yes,
No,
thank
we
you very
appreciate
much,
you and your
Lise.
team for your presentation. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you.
So the audience in attendance, thank you for your time. We appreciate your dedication each night. This goes on again tomorrow night from 6 till 8, 3 new presenters tomorrow night. Again, just make sure that you print off your pesticide receipt forms that'll be sent out to you. I don't think there's anything else I'm missing, is there, Chloe?
I'm just gonna try to share my screen here, so that you can get the CEU
CCA.
points. Yeah. All right, so everyone should be able to see it there now. And just a reminder that all the pesticide points, you'll get an email right after this session. So just make sure you fill everything out and hit submit, and then that will be your receipt for watching this session's videos.
There was strong attendance again tonight, almost 120. And looking forward to seeing all of you again tomorrow night. So thanks again.
Thank you.